Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2. Today I want to show you guys a real quick speed farming variant of the best build in the game, the Quill Volley Spiritborn build, so that you guys can absolutely just blast through everything in the game while still doing trillions of damage. This video isn't going to be super in-depth. I already have a very in-depth guide on this build, so feel free to just reference that video here if you want to know all the nitty-gritty detail about this build. But today's video, I'm just going to show you guys what I personally swap around if I want to speed farm or just do like general stuff in the game. This build has such an ungodly amount of damage that you don't have to optimize around the damage too much. You can sacrifice some damage in the name of speed, and as you can see in the gameplay, there's a lot of ways you can get some speed. So I just want to go over some little tips and tricks that I've learned along the way and how you can optimize your character around going real fast. Before I get into the video, I want to give a big thanks to today's sponsor, Age of Empires Mobile, an epic war strategy experience set in medieval times based on the classic franchise that you've come to know and love, which is now actually available for free on both the Apple and Google Play Store. Something really cool is the game is actually co-developed by Microsoft World's Edge and Timmy Studio Group as to preserve some of the classic elements of the franchise while introducing new and exciting gameplay mechanics. As you can tell, the game features stunning visuals with super high quality graphics to fully immerse yourself in these epic large-scale battles. One of my favorite parts of Age of Empires is recruiting legendary historical figures that I spent forever learning about and obsessing about in high school, such as Julius Caesar himself or even Constantine, and having just a ton of different commanders in the game to actually unlock, upgrade, and strategically work around their personal skills, which is just a lot of fun to optimize and kind of always be thinking about and experimenting with these different characters and progressing with them. Age of Empires has over 3 million pre-registrations and officially launches on October 17th. You can hop in and enjoy battles of heroic proportion by clicking the link down below and downloading for free. And if you do, you'll get milestone rewards, tons of global launch gift codes, exciting lucky draws, and you can engage in thrilling community events. Make sure to download now by using the link for the best gift packs. As always, the build link will be down in the description, so feel free to check that out. I will have a speed farming variant for you, but also all the other variations are up to date, so feel free to check those out. There's also an early endgame one and a leveling one if you're curious. Again, I'm not going to go super in depth. I kind of expect at this point you guys probably know what's going on with this build. If you don't, again, just watch the video that I posted a couple days ago. All that information is still relevant, and I'm basically using the same build. I've just swapped around a couple pieces and some stuff in the skill tree, so let's talk about that. One of the first things that I have swapped out is I'm no longer using Scourge, at least for speed farming. That's because I like to have access to Soar and Vortex, and with Soar, with enough cooldown reduction, you can pretty much spam it all the time, and it gives you 50% movement speed after you use it. So it is very helpful to honestly just fly around the game. As you can see, I have a very low cooldown on it, because when I use it, I get cooldown reduction. So I can fly around and Soar all the time, and there's something particularly helpful, which I'll show you guys later, but if I use my ult and then I use Soar afterwards, I can just spam it back to back to back, which is really nice if you're just in open world or just like in pit and stuff. You can traverse through terrain, do all sorts of stuff while having access to Soar is really good. You lose out on 50% multiplicative damage versus Cracker's Ult enemies with Scourge, but if you are speed farming and you're doing just like open world stuff, you're literally one-shotting everything in the game anyways, so the extra damage from Scourge isn't entirely necessary. Otherwise, I still have all the same stuff. I have Armored Hide, just for the extra damage with the block chance that it gives you, and the max resolve. Hunter is insane, especially for speed farming, because the animation on it is so clean. You instantly teleport, and it gives you a lot of really nice synergies by having the ultimate on your bar. Ravager, of course, for the dash, and we also need it for our vigor generation. And then Vortex is one of the main things that I'm kind of building around for speed farming. Quill Volley's issue relative to other skills is its ability to kind of clear the whole screen. So we utilize Vortex a lot with this setup, and we have a really low cooldown on it, and our goal is to kind of just spam Vortex. One of the ways that we can do that is by speccing into intricacy in the in the skill tree here, where anytime you use your ultimate skill, the last skill that you use, you can cast it up to 4 times in the next 5 seconds, but it's actually 5 times. So as you can see, if I make sure to press Vortex prior to ulting, now I can press my Vortex 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in a row, and then the cooldown is only 5 seconds because I have so much cooldown reduction. This makes it to where when you're just flying through maps and stuff, you can spam your Vortex over and over, so the second that you engage a pack, you can instantly suck all the mobs together and then instantly just one-tap them down with the damage of Quill Volley. For a while, I was using the legendary where when you press Soar, it does Vortex, but a lot of the time the mobs would suck into you right when you landed, and then it would just glitch out and you'd have to evade and then shoot behind you, and it actually just slowed me down, and you lose a lot of damage having to put that aspect on, and I just didn't really like that playstyle. So I kind of just use Soar independently purely for movement speed, and then Vortex is just a massive quality of life. And as you can see, I have an insanely low cooldown on all of these things because I'm using Harlequin Crest, but I'll talk about that when we get to the gear. When it comes to skill tree, I'll quickly show it. I'm using Shroud of False Death, which gives me +1 to all passives, so my skill tree will be a little bit messed up here. You don't have to have Shroud of False Death, but it is very nice. It's particularly good for damage, and it giving you all stats makes it very easy to reach a lot of Paragon node breakpoints. You can use a normal chest, and then you'll lose out on a little bit of damage, and you'd have to go out of your way to kind of like use intelligence gems and strength gems, and it would be a little annoying. You could do it, but generally, I would recommend just try to get a Shroud of False Death if possible. Skill tree is like mostly the same from a normal variation of the build. I'll have a link, obviously, so feel free to just reference that. But I just go into a lot of the damage stuff like normal. I opt out of some damage reduction, but you could go into it like follow through is pretty low damage, so you could go into perseverance and stuff if you want some more damage reduction. Blah, blah, blah. Do whatever you want. One thing that I do for the speed farming version is I put points into Swift, where my mobility cooldown is reduced by up to 4 seconds based on how far you travel with them. So because I have 4 points into this, I'll get a 4-second cooldown reduction on my soar, and my soar is only a 6.5-second cooldown because of my Harlequin Crest. So if I soar as far as possible, I get a 4-second reduction on it, so I can just soar way more often. Otherwise, the points are pretty much the same. You could go into some points for acceleration to have more evade charges if you want to be even faster. And then again, I put some points into intricacy so that I can spam my vortex. And then lastly, I put a ton of points into the hunter here to reduce its cooldown. And more points that are in it, the faster you're gonna reduce the cooldown with Prodigy's tempo. So as you can see, I reduced the cooldown on my hunter extremely quickly here in about 3 seconds just by spamming my attacks, which is really nice for the benefit with intricacy and also just for movement speed in general because the hunter is so good for movement. When it comes to my gear, this is 99% a standard Kapeleke build using obviously Rod of Kapeleke with Bannersword's Talisman and then Ring of the Midnight Sun. Try to have about a 47% or higher Ring of the Midnight Sun. You want Bannersword's Talisman for the guaranteed overpower, scale up your max HP, blah, blah, blah. Kapeleke instantly spends all of your vigor. We've been over this 100 times. If you want to know more about it, just watch the video. But try to get at least 240 maximum vigor. Not too difficult to do. Just try to get GA max resource on a Kapeleke if you can. Harlequin Crest helps out a lot because it just has max resource on it. And then if you still need more max resource, you can use an Elixir of Resourcefulness. When it comes to gear and stuff, I'll go piece by piece. So one of the biggest changes with a speed farming version of the build rather than the normal version is using Harlequin Crest, obviously. The main reason for this is that it just gives you a disgusting amount of cooldown reduction. 50% cooldown reduction is insane for pretty much just spamming the hunter, spamming soar, and spamming vortex. It also isn't that bad for damage. It's definitely a damage loss, like a fairly significant one, because you lose out on either Resolve Stacks or Resilient Temper. We are lacking some barrier generation with this setup. And also, the stats on it, the stats on it are actually pretty good, but you lose a legendary aspect too. So the good thing about Harlequin is that it has max HP and it has max resource for us, which is very good for scaling our damage. If you had one that happened to be GA max HP and max resource and cooldown reduction, it actually wouldn't be that bad for damage. It gives you +4 ranks to all skills, and 20% DR is pretty nice too. I'm mainly using it for the cooldown reduction, so I prioritized one with CDR, and then I tried to masterwork it for CDR as well. Haha, streamer loot. But if you don't have one GA, like obviously it doesn't matter, you just want the cooldown reduction. You could even use a normal helmet if you want that has max resource, max HP, cooldown reduction, and that would actually work really well too. It would probably be more damage if you were to do that, but you get less cooldown reduction as a result. So I just like having as much cooldown reduction as possible, which is the main reason for Harlequin. Although you can set this up without Harlequin and it would be fine. And then again for the chest, we go Shroud of False Death. Setting this up without Shroud of False Death is kind of hard because the Shroud gives you a shit ton of all stats, 232, and it's very hard to reach certain Paragon breakpoints without 232. I guess it's mainly just this node here, the 510 strength. There's some like 430 nodes down here, which you could probably reach without it, but it does become a little cumbersome. So if you don't have Shroud of False Death, I wouldn't say that it's the end of the world. You'll just lose out on some damage, and you might have to optimize around getting some more all stats so that you can reach those breakpoints in Paragon board, or you can just omit them entirely. If you wanted a normal chest, you just grab something like I have here, Dex, max HP, resist all elements, and one of the benefits would be that you get a additional temper, so you could temper on like barrier gen, because we are currently lacking that, and then you could get like maximum resolve stacks, which would be pretty good for damage, but Shroud of False Death is still more damage because it gives you so much flat HP, and the +1 to all passives is insane in the skill tree there and helps out a lot. So definitely go for Shroud of False Death if possible. Otherwise, just try to grab a chest like this. Gloves, pretty much the same as always. We want Dex. Resource cost reduction is actually better than Dex because it scales your Capellica up more than Dex does. Just gives you a multiplicative damage increase if you have resource cost reduction, so you'd want something like this. And then you want max HP, GA, try to get as much masterwork crits into max HP if possible, ranks to Quill Volley, and then barrier gen and overpower damage, and of course we want redirected force paired with interdiction here. I don't have a ton of resolve stacks on my character right now because I'm using Harlequin and Shroud, which is a decent DPS loss, right? But it's okay, I still one-shot everything regardless. If it's better to have resilient or, ranks to resolve stacks on your pants temper, I don't know the math on it. If you only have one, I'd say resilient might be better, but they're probably pretty close to each other. So if you have pants with resilient or maximum resolve stacks, just use whatever you have access to. Resilient is a little bit easier to get because the max resolve stacks you kind of need to land the masterwork crits on. But otherwise for pants, Dex, max HP, ranks of basic skills is ideal, and you could get armor instead of Dex or resistance to all elements if you want to cap yourself there. And then one of the other differences that I do is I just put on boots with greater affix movement speed. You lose either armor or dexterity to do this. I kind of just have a different pair of boots that I swap between. So these other pair of boots are my like pure damage ones with max HP, but these ones I swap to for the greater affix movement speed to movement speed cap myself. And then there's two aspects you could do on the boots. You could either do Ghost Walker, which gives you it'll just give you movement speed cap. It gives you 25% move speed, plus a greater affix, plus a temper. That'll cap you pretty much. But I like to use this one where you gain increased damage to slowed enemies. The reason for this is that when you're speed farming, you don't want to wait for any lucky hit procs or any conditional sort of damage. You want to just instantly kill stuff. And the damage is really high with this build, so that'll kind of happen anyways. But you get the extra 20% damage there, and then you get another 30% because you're instantly applying any crowd control. So any damage versus crowd control will automatically be applied as a result of using this. Alternatively, though, you could just use Ghostwalker for more move speed. You could use the Soar, spams Vortex into mobs, whatever you prefer. You could even use Duelist if you just wanted to go for more damage. But ultimately, I think this is just more consistent when you are trying to speed farm. And then again, on the boots, you just want Dex, max HP, move speed if you can, and swap the Dex to either armor or resistances if you feel like it. And then you want either 1 or 2 tempers of vortex size. I found that the second temper doesn't help that much, but it is nice when you are spamming the vortex. One of the problems with having Harlequin and Shroud on is that our barrier generation is a little bit lacking. Ideally, you want to have 122.3% barrier gen, but as a result of having on Harlequin and Shroud and then missing 1 barrier generation temper, I can only get up to 107%. It's fine, you do lose a little bit of damage. You're not going to have a fully maxed out barrier, but it's close enough, and you do so much damage with this build anyways, it's not all that big of a deal. And you can see that this 1 temper that I have on my gloves is actually a pretty low percentage, so if this was higher, I'd have higher barrier gen there. On your Capellica, you want to go for a chance for core skills to hit twice and try to masterwork crit that if possible. On your ring, you want Moonrise for the extra damage, and the movement speed is pretty nice. You could use the Fellsayer's aspect if you want for speed farming, but probably not as good as a Moonrise is. And then I went for max HP, GA, attack speed, and then resource cost reduction. Resource cost reduction gives you additional damage via Capellica, like I said before. But if you don't have at least 560 int, then you want to have resource generation as your temper there. And then I just tempered on offensively overpower damage, but not a big deal. The damage increase from the additive there is really low. Ring of the Midnight Sun, you want Dex, GA, and try to masterwork crit there. Cooldown reduction is also a pretty good masterwork and greater affix if possible. And then for your Banished Lords, prioritize the maximum HP, and the ranks to core skills are your best bet, as always. And then for Spirit Hall, Jaguar, and Gorilla Bottom. Gorilla Bottom is just for the maximum resolve stacks and the permanent unstoppable. It is pretty much the same as always. I didn't really change it for the speed farming variant. We got Headhunter, Spirit, Colossal, and Menagerist. Again, just check the link down in the description. People ask all the time, is Hubris better than Menagerist? It's a 1% difference. I wouldn't worry too much about it. And then lastly, we have Fulminate, and you only need to get 150% lightning damage bonus to max out the conversions in Fulminate, so that's why we don't take every single int node here. Another thing I swap out between the normal build and this one is that I like to go with the teleport rune, so that anytime I basically build up my offerings, I get teleport, so I just have a lot more movement speed that way. You build up the offering by using the Pock rune paired with Quay. Obviously, we're still using that for the barrier. So anytime you proc the barrier, you get enough offering by using Zol plus Jaw to then teleport. So as you can see, my evade turns into teleport. Pair that with all the soar and the additional spamming of the vortex and stuff, and just having a low cooldown on my ult. You can move around pretty quickly with this build. That's pretty much it for the build. I just wanted to make a quick little update video for you guys to show you what a speed farming version of it will look like. Basically, we just put on the teleport rune, and you optimize around spamming Vortex a little bit, put on a Harlequin Crest for some CDR, and boom, you're good to go. You could add like one Vortex size temper if you prefer, just so that you can like spam Vortex like a madman. And then I like to just get like movement speed on the boost and stuff. You lose quite a bit of damage doing this setup, but if you're already hitting for like 100 trillion, it doesn't really matter, right? Like you're gonna one-shot everything anyways, as you can see on screen. So this is just a variation of the build that is going to be nice for doing like general content. And if I were to just run around playing with this build on a day-to-day basis, this is pretty much how I would have it set up. Damage is still more than fine. You're doing absolutely ridiculous damage, and it is just very nice to have Vortex all the time to pretty much spam it to be able to just kill everything. When it comes to gameplay tips, again, I would just make sure to use Vortex prior to using your ultimate, so then you can spam the Vortex by using taking advantage of the intricacy node in the skill tree. Otherwise, you could do this trick with pretty much any skill that you wanted to. So if you want to spam soar like 5 times back to back, you can press soar, then press your ult, and then after you press your ult, because you pressed soar previously, you can now spam soar back to back to back to back, right? I like to do it with Vortex, though, specifically for Quill Volley, because it's just very nice to be able to spam Vortex, get all the mobs together, and then one-tap them. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the video. It was a pretty quick one. I might do a more updated Quill Volley build if any more developments happen, but as it stands right now, there's not much to cover. I think the build that I made a couple days ago pretty much fully encompasses everything you need to know. I might do an FAQ video tomorrow, so if you have any questions about Spiritborn, let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.